Hey, I'm Billy.
I'm Francis.
And we're the Fuji Guys. We're here at a skateboard park today to kind of test out 3 new Fuji red badge zoom lenses. You might have a camera like this, which comes with a standard kit lens. This here is an XC 16 to 50 millimeter lens, which is a nice kit lens to start off because it is very versatile, but we want to show you some options with other lenses, especially your red badge zoom lens today, the XF 10 to 24 millimeter. We'll play also with the XF 16 to 55 f2.8, and of course the XF 50 140. So these are Fuji's red badge zooms. Again, trying to elevate your game, coming from a kit lens and just giving you some ideas of what your pictures would look like if you were to attach it to a camera like this. And of course today we're shooting with an X-T10, so keep on watching. Okay, so we're back with now the XF 10 to 24 millimeter lens. It's now attached to the Fujifilm X-T10 camera. We're going to shoot with this lens first to see how it feels. I mean, the wide angle is actually nice, and because it's very wide angle, we're going to be shooting up pretty close.
Yep, pretty close.
I'm going to volunteer Francis to do some tricks on the skateboard at this particular position.
And then with this lens, you want to shoot for action, shoot down low to give a nice perspective. Since there's a little distortion, it gives a little more dynamic picture for action sports. So it's going to be interesting.
Awesome. And we already set this camera to shoot classic chrome. I think it's a nice film simulation for this particular shot. But of course, if you're shooting raw, you can of course convert that to any other film simulation modes you like afterwards. For this, because we're just going to shoot JPEGs. We love the Fuji JPEGs. And let's just get you up on the board and do it, right?
Okay, let's go.
Okay. So as Francis sets up for his shot, you know, as you can see here, I'm pretty wide open. Even though it seems like I'm very close to him, I'm not really that close. I get a quite wide angle shot, and shooting low gives me that little bit of distortion to it. Let's see if I can just position my shot here. I've also set the camera to shoot at a high speed because I'm going to apply a bunch of frames, and hopefully I can get 3 or 4 good shots, right? And track him as he comes along. Again, you know, we're trained professionals. I do recommend that, you know, you put your helmets on, you have some safety equipment on. I know I'm not boarding right now, but, you know, I'm always well prepared. Again, tracking mode, he's falling in.
We'll get there.
So what I did there was really, again, set it to continuous autofocus. I've had the tracking on, and I'm just following him as he moves along. And the camera will quickly allow me to track it. Because it's a wide angle lens, I'm not going to worry too much about focusing because really, you know, there's a lot of depth of field here in these shots. And hopefully I can show you some of the examples of what we get. I'm going to try to get lower. The great thing too is that I got this tilt LCD screen. It's going to make it easier to get even lower angle shots. So I'm going to try to do that when Francis comes along. Awesome.
That doesn't count.
The classic chrome looks amazing on the screen here. Hopefully I can get back on the computer and take a look at the image itself. But I think we got some really good keepers. So let's see how those results look like, you know, as we check out this 10 to 24. Again, you know, I'm shooting wide open on this because the whole point of the wide angle lens is to get that neat perspective. Francis, how are you doing so far on that?
I need to land that.
You know what, I think for this purposes, I think Francis did a pretty good job, especially the fact that he hasn't been skateboarding for like quite a long time. He's gonna keep going at it. So again, I'm using the LCD screen and I got the tracking focus on.
Okay, so it's gonna be Billy's turn now. He's pretty experienced with scooters. He's gonna show skills, and I'm just gonna get a few shots of him in continuous.
Woo!
Wow. So as you can see, I'm pretty close, but still the field of view is very large, so it gives a very dynamic image. So I'm just gonna get a shot of Billy. There you go. That's it. Okay. Pretty good. Pretty good.
How's that, Francis?
Amazing. It's not. Give me one more.
I get that cut though. Look at that cut.
So, Billy, you did a pretty good job.
So that was kind of crazy, Francis.
Good
I know.
job. Good
I
job.
only did 3 runs. I'm exhausted. You're a pro at this boarding stuff. The 10-24 was a fun lens. I think the wide angle really gives a nice perspective.
Yeah, interesting perspective. Gives you a chance to get really close and give like a wow to it.
Exactly. And I think if we look at some of these pictures, I think, if you really are into skateboarding or just some sports action that you really want that unique viewpoint, the 10-24 I think would be a good lens to look at, right?
Yeah, excellent.
Woo! So we just switched lenses. We now have the 16 to 55 f2.8 lens. This is a very versatile lens. I know the focal length is equivalent to that of the kit lens, like the XC16 to 50. So you're not really changing focal length here in terms of getting more, but it is a weather-resistant lens. It does have aperture, and because the glass is a constant 2.8, generally I can get very shallow depth of field if I needed to. But for this purpose, again, I'm just going to shoot with a set shutter speed of 1/2000th of a second to kind of freeze the action. Let the camera decide the aperture.
Yeah.
I've again volunteered Francis to do some tricks for us, so that we can try to capture that with this lens because it's so versatile. I'm gonna be shooting in different angles. I don't have to be very close now, but I can be as close as I need to. And again, something like this, you don't want to be very close when he's jumping off. The skateboard can kind of fly in your head. That's why I got a helmet on me for some protection. But again, let's go and check that out. Okay, Francis?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so I got Francis preparing to get on the skateboard. I'm just shooting, again, shutter priority at 1/2000th of a second. Just want to freeze Francis in action. And I'm just going to set the aperture just to A. The great thing about this lens is that it does have an aperture ring on it, unlike the XT lens. I'm using zone autofocus and setting the camera's focus to continuous to make it easier for me to track the subject and get the shot, of course, in focus. And shooting classic chrome. So again, I'm just going to half press, and kind of track Francis into the shots. And as he gets closer to the peak, I'm going to fire off a bunch of shots and hopefully have him land a few things for me there. So that's kind of the thing about this lens is that it's a very versatile lens. I'm shooting 16 millimeters, but I can actually zoom in a little bit. So my next shot, I'm going to try to get him at the peak and still use it to track. So I'm tracking, and I'm firing a bunch of shots now. And because I'm zoomed in, again, I can create a little bit of compression. Francis, when you come over here, just talk about the lens. I thought the lens did a great job. You did a great job too, Francis.
Thank you.
We all survived. I'm wearing a helmet, it kills for protection, just in case this skateboard flies and hits my head. Francis, I did have some fun with this. I'm gonna have you do some more shots. I'm gonna change the angle because this is a zoom lens. Yeah. And I'm gonna try to see if I can shoot at 55 millimeters and get a different shot from you from just further away.
Absolutely.
So if you have some energy, we can...
I still have some juice left.
We can do 1 or 2 more shots. So why don't you do that and I'll run over this side.
Let's do that.
So here I'm at a different angle, as you can see right there. Just shooting at 55 millimeters. I'm still using tracking. I'm gonna half press to follow Francis in. And at the peak of the shot, I'm just gonna let go. So that wasn't bad at all. Let's try it one more time. And again, it's very simple. I'm not thinking about aperture or shutter speeds. Again, just setting it to shutter priority. You can bump up the shutter speed to 1/4000th of a second if you wanted to as well, depending on the lighting situation here. And he lands that shot. Very, very cool. I don't know if I got that or not, but hey, we'll take a look at some of the shots. So Francis, thank you for doing this test. I don't know if you're going to be shooting with this lens. Yeah. Maybe. You can give it a try?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe on a different angle.
With your scooter.
With my little scooter.
Yeah.
It's a little safer.
Yeah.
But I think I had some fun with this lens. Again, it being weather resistant, if it is rainy, I can actually get away with some good shots in the rain. It has the versatility like your kit lens, but because, again, constant zoom, you can really, isolate the subject from the foreground.
Yeah.
So if that's what you're needing, okay, that will be an interesting a lens for you to upgrade on. Again, it doesn't really change the focal length to your kit lens because it's pretty much the same, but the sharpness of the images will be a little bit higher, I think. And of course,
aperture.
the constant aperture is a huge bonus. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these images and then we'll go and shoot some more. So we're still at the skate park. I now have the XF 50 to 140 millimeter lens. I got Francis now a little further away because this is a telephoto lens. This is a great lens just to get close to the action without having to be in the action. So, my helmet being off is pretty good now because I know I'm not going to get any skateboards in my head, which is great. Francis is going to do some tricks for us. Yep. And I'm just going to try to shoot away with the 50 to 140 and kind of let you know how I feel about it, okay? So, Francis, when you do your thing?
Yeah, I'm just going to drop and come back.
So Francis is going to do some more tricks for us. I'm going to have some more opportunities to shoot with the 50 to 140. I'm at a very safe distance. And again, just using tracking autofocus with the continuous to try to get my shots here. Just firing away. I'm shooting shutter priority, and again, letting the camera choose the aperture for me just saves me the time. I'm thinking about what I need to do and just allowing me to track the subject, get him in focus, and get my exposure right automatically. All right, I'm gonna zoom in all the way now so you can get some really tight shots. I love this lens because, it being a red badge zoom, it is weather resistant. f2.8, if I wanted to shoot wide open. The OIS on this is actually quite nice. I don't really even need a tripod, to be honest with you. Although I'm shooting at faster shutter speeds. Again, you always want to think about when shooting telephoto lenses to have the inverse in terms of shutter speed. So at 140 millimeters, which is, I guess, equivalent to kind of a 200, 210, you need at least a 1/200th of a second shutter speeds. I'm shooting way past that at 1/2000. So, I'm not gonna have to worry about camera shake. But the OAS is also helping me get my shot. So when Francis gets a little bit more energy, I'll fire off some shots about him. And again, just very tight. Some really good air. I think I got that. I'm gonna take a look at it and see. I think really awesome to get, again, those shots. Francis, if you can do something like that again, that would be awesome. Just fly up. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. So hopefully he lands it. If he doesn't land it, if he doesn't land, that's okay. I'm more than happy. So I'm just half pressing, letting the tracking autofocus do its thing. And I'm gonna try that again. This time I'm just gonna shoot it a little bit more wide. Even though you have a telephoto lens, that doesn't mean you always have to zoom in all the way. And this being a constant aperture lens, if I shot f2.8 and I zoomed in, it would still be f2.8. And that's the nice thing about upgrading, where, with your kit lens, potentially the aperture would be actually closed down a little bit more. So that was pretty good. Let's take a look at some of those shots to see. Then we're gonna recap maybe our thoughts between this lens. I'm not gonna let Francis shoot with this. He was shooting with it earlier because I'm definitely not a very good skateboarder, nor am I a good, scooter type of person. So we'll just do a little quick recap with the 3 lenses that we think are good updates to your kit. We'll talk about them. Francis, I think is exhausted now. Thank you so much. So let's take a look at some of the pictures and just do a little quick recap. So Francis, we played around with the 3 different lenses today at the skateboard park. We just wanted to show you what it would look like if you were to upgrade your lens and maybe try something a little bit different beyond the kit. You know, again, we were shooting with an X-T10, but it could have been any of Fujifilm's mirrorless camera. If you bought a kit, it most likely came with the XC 16 to 50 millimeter lens.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good all-around lens, but it is limited by the speed of the aperture on the lens. You know, at full telephoto, it closes down to 5.6. As well as, you know, you don't have some of the external controls like the aperture ring. So we wanted to show not only an equivalent lens that you can upgrade, but also, you know, different focal lengths. So the first lens we tried out was the XF10 to 24.
Yeah.
I kind of like this lens, especially for skateboarding, because if you can get really close, it does give a unique perspective, especially shooting at the 10 millimeter focal length, which, you know, to our cameras with the crop, it's equivalent to about a 15 millimeter wide angle lens. Not necessarily, you know, fisheye.
No.
But, you know, that angle does give you some good quality, you know, sharp images without too much distortion, but a unique angle. So I got some good shots of you. I thought I really liked it. Even played around with the LCD screen that,
to get down low,
to get down low, which is kind of nice. You shot with the 10 to 24. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, I love that kind of angle for shooting mostly skateboarding, but any type of sports, because you can get close. So you have your subject there, you can get really close and get a lot of the environment at the same time. So you get your subject and you get everything in the back too, without too much distortion. So that's really good. It's really sharp. It's a fun lens, really, and for action.
I think so too. So one thing you have to note is that, you know, you do have to get close if you want to get the unique angles. So
be careful.
Certain sports, of course, you know, it's not going to be ideal for, but for skateboarding, I think it's a wicked lens to use.
Really nice.
The other lens that we jumped off to was the XF 16 to 55. It's similar focal length to most kit lenses.
Yeah.
But this is a 2.8 constant, right?
Yeah. So if you want to, well, this is really versatile. If you want to shoot portraits, action, you can do all that here. So let's say you go on a shoot with a skateboarder, because we're in a skateboard park. You shoot pictures of skateboarding, but then you want to get like a nice portrait of the guy. So you can do that. You just put it to 55, put it to 2.8, because that's a constant aperture, and you get that blurred background isolating the subject. So you can do pretty much anything with it. So that's fun for that.
I think I like that too, because, you know, your kit lens, you know, when you do zoom out to the full mark, it closes the aperture down. So this particular lens, I think, was 5.6, and, you know, you don't get that shallow depth of field. You know?
It does blur it, but not as much.
Not as much, yeah. So that you know, for this situation, not necessarily to shoot around with sports, because you can do that with your 16 to 50, but doing some portrait shots while in the park itself, you can get some really good results. And then the last lens is
the 50 to 140. You shot it. I was too exhausted.
And I was too afraid to skateboard and do all the tricks that you were doing today.
So what do you think of that?
You know, I like the fact that I can be very far away from you and the skateboard, and without having to worry about skateboards flying and hitting my head. And, you know, regardless of sporting events, you know, generally you're always in the sideline, and you need that reach. That's going to give you that reach beyond the kit, 16 to 50. It's also a constant zoom at f2.8, so, you know, if I wanted to get faster shutter speeds in a day like maybe not like today, but in a more cloudy day, then,
or later,
you know,
later
the faster
on.
the aperture allows me to get faster shutter speeds, so I can still maintain, you know, the freezing of actions. We're shooting shutter priority today, and because it was sunny, it wasn't a big concern for us, because again, we had it at 1/2000th of a second, and the aperture kind of ranged there between f8 to f16, depending on sun coming in and out of the clouds. But we didn't have to think about that today.
Yeah, and as the day go on, the sun is coming down, so you can you still can shoot and get a wider aperture and get your fast shutter speed. So that's good.
That's right.
Definitely.
So I really like this lens. I think it's a very, very sharp lens for Fuji. I think, you know, getting close to the action without having to be physically close to the action, I think it's a great thing with this, and especially with skateboarding and whether it's baseball, whether it's
Soccer,
your son and daughter's soccer, football games where you're on the sideline, you want to get close to the action. It is a step up, and it gives you that more perspective to get in the action itself. So I think all 3 lenses are great additions to try out. I think you should, you know, if you have the chance, take your camera to a store, maybe potentially rent the lens and try it out for yourself, because I think you'll be pleasantly surprised of the type of images you get just by going away from kit.
Changing the perspective.
And changing the perspective and getting different focal lengths. So until then, hopefully you learned something about photography today, whether it's skateboards or about lenses. If you want to learn about this and other Fujifilm products, again, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and of course, you can catch us on a lot of the photo walks that we do sometimes. Sign up for some of our newsletters and check it out. Until then, I'm Billy.
And I'm Francis.
And we're the Fuji Guys. And being at a safe distance like this, I don't get injured, not like Francis out there. So again, these guys, Francis is a trained professional. He's done this all his life, so he knows what he's doing. I always recommend you get your helmet, your knee pads, your elbow pads, any type of pads you got for protection, because I definitely wouldn't be doing what he's doing right now.